You know that moment when a single sentence reverberates through your bones, leaving you frozen in a memory that feels both distant and unbearably close. It happens in an instant, a careless phrase delivered without malice, yet it burrows into your chest like a shard of ice. You're standing there, trying to breathe, and all you feel is numbness, swallowing your voice whole. I remember the day someone looked at me with well-meaning eyes and said, "Nicho strashno." It's nothing. Those words weren't meant to wound, but in that instant, my world collapsed. The silence that followed was deafening, as if every fragment of my pain was declared invisible, unworthy of acknowledgement. And I carried that weight for years. Physical injuries heal, scars fade, bones knit back together. But the invisible wounds carved by words, they linger. They twist themselves into the corners of your mind, whispering that your pain doesn't matter. Every time you try to speak up, that echo pulls you back down. It's like walking with a hidden fracture. No one sees it, but every step sends tremors through your soul. You might have learned to smile, to nod, and move on. You may have even convinced yourself that what was said was harmless. After all, they didn't mean it. But inside, something shifted. A part of you recoiled, expecting blame or dismissal, anticipating that your truth would always be minimized. You built walls around your heart, not to keep others out, but to guard the fragile pieces you didn't yet know how to protect. What's paradoxical is that these verbal wounds, though unseen, carry a force that outstrips any physical blow. A bruise fades, but a bruise to the spirit can color every thought for years. It teaches you to distrust your own feelings, to question your worth. You begin to tighten your jaw at every critique, to shrink at every gentle rebuke, to brace yourself for the next invisible arrow. Yet, here's something you may not have realized. Those wounds are more than mere scars. They are signposts, pointing to the parts of yourself you've been too afraid to explore. The ache you feel each time you recall "it's nothing" isn't a weakness, it's a signal. It tells you where you've been silenced, where your voice was deemed unimportant, and where your authentic self was eclipsed by someone else's dismissal. I'm not here to plaster over that pain with empty assurances or to hand you a quick fix mantra. This isn't about pretending the storm doesn't rage inside. True strength isn't born from ignoring the tempest. It emerges when you lean into it, when you trace the cracks until you find the light weaving through. So sit with that numbness for a moment. Feel the weight of the words you wish you could unhear. Let the ache remind you that you are alive, that you have a story worth telling. Because by the end of this video, you'll understand why wounds from words are not just hurt, but a key to yourself. You've been told 1,000 times that words are just words, a convenient lie crafted to keep you silent, to make you swallow each cutting remark and carry on as if nothing happened. But those words are not inert. They're fragments of someone else's power, launched straight at your sense of self. And you, trained to minimize your pain, learn to catch them between the walls you built in your heart. They say, "Don't pay attention," as if turning away will make the arrow disappear. Yet the illusion of ignoring those barbs is a trap. You try to act strong, pretending the sting didn't hit you, but inside you're on high alert. Primitive survival kicking in every time a voice in a meeting, an offhand joke, or a harsh critique echoes a phrase you once heard in childhood. You think you've mastered indifference, but what you've really done is given those words a permanent seat in your mind. Then come the well-intentioned experts. Just forgive and let it go. Forgive who, exactly? The person who never saw you? The voice that told you you'd never amount to anything? And letting go of what? The wound. They don't understand that forgiveness without understanding is like ripping out a bandage without cleaning the wound. You only expose raw flesh again, making the pain deeper and more festering. When you're urged to move on, You're forced to jump ahead without tending to the rip in your soul. Over the years, the voices that once belonged to others have crept inside you, morphing into your relentless internal critic. That parent who said, "You're too sensitive," now resides behind your right eye, whispering every time you hesitate. That teacher who sneered, "You'll never shine," now lives in your chest, throttling your confidence before you even begin. And so you've become your own worst enemy, harsh, uncompromising, convinced that self-flagellation is the price of growth. What's truly devastating is how these echoes of your past unconsciously guide every decision you make. You might choose a safe job over a dream career because someone once ridiculed your ambition. You might settle for a relationship that chips away at your self-worth because you think you don't deserve more. Each reaction, each hesitance, each self-limiting belief is a tribute to the day a careless word took root in your psyche. But here's the truth they won't tell you. Your suffering is not a flaw in you. It is a symptom of a system built to devalue genuine emotion, to convince you that your feelings are a burden, not a guide. We live in a world that rewards stoicism and punishes vulnerability, that applauds the facade of confidence, yet shames any crack in the armor. And so we learn to muzzle our true voices, to perform perfection, while our souls leak out in silent pain. Yet once you recognize this pattern, you reclaim your agency. You see that those words never belonged to you. They were thrust upon you, and you can choose which voices to honor. The moment you start naming each critical thought as an echo of someone else's betrayal, you weaken its hold. The advice to ignore it transforms into a call to expose it, to shine light on the hidden tapes that run your life. If this resonates, if you feel that chill of recognition, subscribe to the channel. Let's break the silence and let more people hear the truth they've been denied. Because the real power isn't in pretending you weren't hurt. It's in standing in the wound and telling it, "You will not define me." You've carried those words inside you like a syringe loaded with poison. Each phrase a verbal injection that seeps into your bloodstream, altering your emotional chemistry. Imagine a doctor who, instead of healing, injects you with doubt. You're not enough. You'll never succeed. Nobody loves you. Over time, those injections leave psycho-emotional scars far deeper than any knife could carve. You don't bleed, but you ache. Invisible bruises that twist your thoughts and steady your hand only when you grasp a crutch of self-criticism. That crutch is your internal critic, and it is not you. It is a grim chorus of stolen voices. Each time you hesitate, you hear the echo of a parent, a teacher, a friend who once told you to stay small. Those borrowed voices collided in your mind, merged into a single tyrant who parades around in your name. You wake up to its tirade before coffee, hear it whisper as you button your shirt, and it follows you into every mirrored surface. You believe it's your own judgment, but it's an archive of every careless word ever directed at you. Carl Jung called this the shadow, the repository of everything you've exiled from consciousness. Every time you shoved away shame, anger, or grief, you sealed those feelings into the shadow, and they festered unseen. That unworthy whisper, it's your shadow, speaking through complexes you formed to keep painful truths locked away. You built walls of repression, convinced that ignoring the wound would make it vanish. But pain doesn't evaporate, it crystallizes into patterns that run your life like puppet strings. Sigmund Freud had a name for the defensive dance you do to avoid these wounds: projection, displacement, reaction formation. You lash out at others because you can't face the cut lodged in your own spirit. You distract yourself with petty obsessions, diverting attention from the flat ache in your chest. Or you overcompensate, boasting, controlling, performing perfection, because the fear of inner emptiness feels too vast to sit with. These are not moral failings, but survival tactics your psyche learned when you were powerless to defend against those first verbal blows. Remember the moment someone said, "Ti nikola ničoho ne dosiagneš," you will never achieve anything? It was more than an insult. It was a script handed to you. You didn't choose it, but you learned to follow it. Now, every goal you set, that voice stands behind you, marking your progress with a silent tally of failures. You hesitate to dream because the ghost of that phrase looms over every ambition, ready to whisper, "Why bother?" And those words don't just live in your mind, they take up residence in your body. Think of a string pulled tight beneath your collarbone, a knot in your jaw that clenches at every criticism, shoulders hunched as if bracing for impact. Your posture becomes a fortress, every muscle tensed for the next verbal barrage. Your voice trembles, cut off before you can reveal your truth, because it remembers the sting of ridicule the first time you tried to speak up. Yet here's the paradox. Genuine strength does not rise from victory over others, but from embracing your vulnerability. Like a tree whose roots grow deeper when battered by storms, you gain resilience when you surrender to the ache in your chest, when you invite every wounded part of you to speak its truth. Strength isn't the absence of fear. It's the decision to stand in fear's eye and say, "I feel you. You are part of me, but you will not define me." So lean into the wound. Let those verbal injections reveal the hidden chambers of your psyche. Name the voices that haunt you. Trace the paths where they run through your body. Sit with the tremor in your throat until it turns from terror into testament, because only by mapping the scar tissue can you navigate toward healing. But there is something even more terrifying. You continue to wound yourself with their voice. You are not to blame for the words that seeped into your bones. You were a child when they landed like stones in your heart, powerless to deflect them. But today, and this is the cruel twist, you are responsible for the echo you carry. What once was thrust upon you now lives in your own voice, looping through your thoughts like a worn cassette. You hear it first thing in the morning, before coffee even warms your hands, reminding you of every shortcoming it ever seeded. You might still tell yourself it's someone else speaking, but the moment you believe it's not yours, you surrender your power to it again. Feel that tightening in your chest, the familiar ache that never truly leaves. It won't dissolve into thin air if you plaster on a smile or recite hollow affirmations. No, the pain endures precisely because you've mistaken endurance for healing. You've told yourself to be stronger, to let it go, to shrug off the sting. But in doing so, you crushed the wound deeper into yourself. Wounds left unspoken fester beneath your ribs. They ache in the silence when you lie awake, questioning why you never united with your own voice. The cruelest cuts often come from those we held closest. When someone you loved, parent, partner, friend, pulled the trigger, their words carried a weight nothing else could match. A lover's dismissal rings louder than a stranger's insult. A parent's disappointment reverberates far longer than any colleague's critique. Those voices are woven into the fabric of your being, like threads you cannot untangle. And those threads tighten every time you reproduce the same judgments and doubts against yourself. It's a bitter admission. You have become the vessel for their cruelty. You replay their exact phrases, "You're too much. You'll never change. Why can't you be like the others?" And you wield them against your own soul. You critique your reflection with the precision of a surgeon, but you cut deeper than any scalpel could. And each time you do, you reinforce the lie that you deserve less, that your value hinges on meeting those impossible standards. Yet there lies a paradox so potent it shatters the chains. To heal, you must not fight these voices, but listen. Hold out your hand to the trembling echo in your mind and say, "I hear you." Invite the trembling syllables into the open air. Watch them lose their power once you witness them fully. Only then can you utter the word that transforms everything. Enough. Not as a whisper, but as a roar that reverberates through every corner of your body. Picture yourself standing in a dark room, every wall lined with speakers broadcasting those old insults. You've tried to shut them off, tried to ignore them, even tried to scream over them in a futile attempt at escape. But now imagine walking toward the center of the room, placing a hand on each speaker and naming the voice behind it. This was my father's fear. This was my lover's anger. This was my teacher's doubt. You give each voice its face, its history, its rightful place, not inside you, but beside you as a separate presence. And then, with all the force you can muster, you say, "No more." That moment is your revolution. You reclaim the space those words occupied, transforming it into a sanctuary where your own voice can grow. The tremor in your throat steadies, the knot in your jaw untangles. You may still feel the aftershocks, the ghostly tremor of an accusation you once heard, but they no longer cut as deep. You have granted them acknowledgement, and in that acknowledgement lies their undoing. Do not mistake this for a victory parade. You will face these voices again, in moments of doubt, in the quiet hours before dawn. But the difference is now you know their names, you know their origin, and you know they are not you. And every time they intrude, you will look them in the eye and say, "Enough." Not to erase the wound, but to claim your right to be whole despite it. This is the point of no return. Once you understand that healing begins not with resistance, but with radical listening, you cannot go back to silent suffering. The words that once defined you become the very keys to your freedom. And though the scars remain, they no longer shackle you. They map the terrain of your resilience. Because true power is born not from the absence of pain, but from the courage to face it, to greet it, and to declare that you will no longer live by its decree. Now that you've faced the storm of your own echoes, here are concrete steps to transform that tremor into a testament of strength. These aren't quick fixes or empty promises. They're invitations to meet yourself with honesty and courage. Begin by unmasking your inner critic. The next time you catch yourself thinking, "I'm worthless," or "I'll never be enough," pause and ask, whose voice is this? Give it a name. Perhaps it's the perfectionist, born from a parent who demanded flawlessness, or the doubter, echoing a teacher's harsh judgment. Naming the voice distances it from your true self. You'll find that once the perfectionist has a label, it loses its seamless claim on your identity. Next, practice the no repeat pledge. For 1 week, become a detective of your own thoughts. As soon as you notice a self-critical phrase echoing in your mind, silently say to yourself, "I will not repeat this." Keep a small notebook by your side, noting each vow you make. Over time, you'll see patterns emerge, certain triggers, familiar words, repeated loops. That awareness is a powerful tool. It shines a light on the pathways those old phrases travel, so you can consciously choose a different route. Words lodge not only in your mind, but in your body. In moments when a critical thought grips you, place one hand over your heart and the other on your belly. Breathe deeply. As you exhale, speak the ache aloud. "This is my pain," or simply hum a single word that carries your hurt, lost, tired. Feel where the word resonates, perhaps a tightness in your throat or a knot between your shoulders. By vocalizing the pain, you allow the body to register and release what the mind has long held hostage. Then, take pen to paper in a letter from your adult self to the child who first heard those cutting words. Begin. Dear younger me, I see how hard it was when they said you'd never succeed. Write as long as you need, offering protection and understanding, you didn't receive back then. This isn't about rewriting history, it's about rewriting your relationship with it. When you sign off, "With all my strength," your grown self, you're forging a bridge between past and present, showing that you're both witness and guardian now. Finally, claim your power with a simple declaration. Stand tall, lift your chin, and say to an empty room, or better yet, to your reflection, "That was cruel. I will not allow myself to hear it anymore." Speak in your strongest voice, as if you're standing up to an adversary. Feel the shift in your chest as you pronounce each syllable. This gesture may seem small, but it's a ritual of sovereignty. You are drawing a line in the sand, telling every critical echo that its reign is over. These practices are not paths to instantaneous healing. They are invitations to build new neural highways, to forge alliances within yourself where once there was only conflict. You'll stumble. Some days the critic will roar louder. But each time you name it, each time you refuse to repeat it, each time you speak your pain into the open, you reclaim a piece of yourself. And in that reclamation lies the quiet promise of transformation, not because the words will vanish, but because you will learn to stand unwavering, no matter how loudly they try to cut you down. This isn't about forgetting the words that cut you so deep. It's about refusing to feed them any longer. You will always remember the sting of those arrows, but you don't have to fire them at yourself again. Every time you catch yourself repeating a cruel echo, pause and choose a different truth. Let compassion, not condemnation, be the voice that guides you. Words can kill, but they can also heal. The same syllables that once wounded you can become the instruments of your own liberation. Speak kindly to yourself. Speak boldly. Turn phrases of shame into mantras of belonging. Let the language of your soul rise above the static of old insults and reclaim the air you breathe. Your true power doesn't lie in numbing your feelings or pretending the wound doesn't exist. Real strength is born in the raw honesty of saying to yourself, "This hurt is mine, and I will face it." When you speak that sentence aloud, even if your voice trembles, even if tears blur your vision, you announce to the world and to your own heart that you are here, fully alive, fully human. Remember, you are not alone in this. Every person who has ever felt the cold echo of a careless remark carries the same scar. When you name your pain, you build a bridge to others who thought they were stranded in solitude. In sharing your scars, you create a tapestry of collective resilience, one thread at a time. This is only the beginning.